Maybe this is your school shed. Maybe this is not your school shed. This is a school shed. So you can see that it's a very simple line drawing plan. It's not a Google image, so you can't already tell that these lines represent the street. Down here, these are the curbs. And this dashed line, you don't necessarily know what that is. This dashed line is your school shed boundary. So the first thing that is probably the best way to start a site analysis plan is just to label those different spaces or the different lines so that they're very clear to you and to someone that's looking at your plan. So you can add in a text box right here. Just draw it in, and you can choose what kind of font you want to use. You can choose the size of the font, and then just type in whatever it is that you want to label. So I just labeled the school shed boundary. You can always resize the text box, or you can move it around. Oh, just make sure that you're moving the text box and not the drawing itself. So you can label, you can see that I already put in the roof, the school shed boundary. You can label in the different spaces outside of your school to make it easier when you're looking at the map. It'll also help you to think through the different spaces as we go forward in our design. You can also add in pieces of information that are missing on the school shed, because this is a really simple zoomed out look at a top-down look at what your school looks like from the air, but maybe it doesn't have some of the information that you can think of. Like here I put in a garden box. I just went to the shape tool, shape, chose a rectangle, and drew in a shape that represents a garden box. I chose a fill color, so I used a light green, and then I also chose a border color, a darker green. You can see that I added that same kind of a color scheme on this rectangle within the key. So I just drew in a new text box that I named key, and then I added in the garden box text so that it's clear to myself and to whoever else looks at this plan that this color represents a garden box. Add in whatever information that you can think about that you can remember from your school, or you can also add in more information from your community survey responses. So you can add in other physical characteristics that are physical elements of your school shed that are not represented on this plan already. But you can also add in things like where there's a lot of flooding. You can just choose a simple shape. Maybe you want to choose just a rectangle or a triangle and show that there is a lot of flooding in this corner. Water is always going over into this corner maybe. So it already drew it as a blue. I'm going to keep that because blue seems good for flooding. And then again, I would just do a copy by Control-C and paste with Control-V. And that's on a Windows computer, so maybe yours is a little bit different. You can also just draw it in separately in the key, and then add in a text box right next to that in the key. Write flooding. I'm going to highlight that and change the font so that it matches the font above it, and it fits. And then I like it to be in line with the symbol that it's representing. So there you go. You can see that they line up together, and so it's really clear for whoever is looking at my map that this symbol shows flooding. So add in whatever responses that you can through symbols or colors onto your map, and just make sure that they're also represented in the key. And then whatever you can't represent with a symbol or a color, you can just add in a text box onto the map itself and say something like play basketball. If a lot of people like to play basketball on the basketball court, then make sure that you're making a comment of that so that you remember that that's a really important piece to a lot of people in your survey responses. You can use a different color so that it shows if it's a good thing or if it's a bad thing. So play basketball, maybe I put that as pink. Maybe somewhere else I put that it's really dirty, for example. Maybe wherever the garbage is kept. And then I would maybe make that a dark orange. So feel free to use whatever kinds of colors or words that you want to use from the survey responses so that this map, it starts to tell more of a story, and it helps you think about what your school represents and what these different spaces, how people use them, what they like about them, why they like those things, and what you think that you want to design in the future for your school. You definitely do not need to continue to use your computer to do this drawing. You can also just look at the map on your Google Draw and sketch out the lines that you see that represent streets and street trees and the building itself, whatever else it is that's on the screen that you think is, or that you can draw in, and then add whatever is missing. So add the different physical pieces that you can remember in the space. So it doesn't have to be perfect at all. Just sketch out what you see. So here I put in the streets and the street trees and the building, and then I started coloring in the different spaces. Where people like to hang out, that's in orange. Where there's flooding, that's in blue. Where people don't like to hang out, maybe, that's a frowny face. Where there are benches, but they weren't on the plan, so I labeled those. And then you can just insert this picture into your Google document by doing Insert, Image, and choose the camera symbol so that you can just take a picture by holding it up to your screen like that, and then just insert it.